Hey, in this lesson we're going to talk a little bit more about isosceles triangles specifically. So we talked in the last lesson a little bit about when we name a triangle by its sides or its angles. If it has two congruent sides, like this one right here, 7 meters and 7 meters, then the triangle is isosceles. Also, if it has two congruent angles, 37 and 37, we also know it's isosceles. So one thing I want to add to that is that the angles across from the sides that are congruent, and the sides across from the angles that are congruent are also congruent. And so in this one, where we have two sides that are 7 and 7, those sides are congruent. That means that these two angles are the congruent angles in this triangle. So the angles that are crossed through the triangle from those sides. Similarly, I have these two congruent angles, and the sides that are through or across the triangle from them, those are the two sides that are going to be congruent. So both of these things are true about an isosceles triangle, the two congruent angles and the two congruent sides. So we can use that information to now solve some problems, find values of x. In this problem I have the two congruent sides, so I have an isosceles triangle, and that means that these two angles across from those sides are also congruent. So I can write an equation to find x. And I can find that x is 10. So pause, use that same idea, and see if we can find x here. So this one's a little different. I see that these two angles are congruent because of my congruent sides. So that means they're equal. So if this one's x, then so is that one. And I know from the previous lesson that these three things should add up to 180. So I can find x using this equation. And I can find that both of these angles are 44 degrees. So this is another style question. I have two congruent angles, so this is an isosceles triangle again. Now the sides across from those angles are congruent. So again, I can write an equation. And get that x is 2. So go ahead, pause here, and use the same idea and find x. So the sides across from the two congruent angles are the ones that are congruent to each other. So I can write the equation 13x equals 9x plus 40. I'm going to subtract 9x from both sides and divide by 4. And I have x equal to 10. So, two questions for you. Find the value of x in each of these isosceles triangles, and if you have questions, please ask in class.